Hello friends! Sometimes official science teaches very interesting things when its research is sincere, objective and humble. But there are people who take science as if it were a dogmatic religion, what they want to impose on others by force or as an instrument at the service of their personal ideologies or political agendas. The basis of all science is doubt and investigation, not absolute certainty. When someone tells you that something is scientific, it is certain that they want to force you to do something you don't want to do, or impose a belief on you, because science has taken the role of medieval inquisitorial religion. Opinion article. Signs of a quantum universe. Uruguayan physicists finds the origin of galaxies. My mother used to tell me I was a thinking idiot, in quotes. He studies the first fraction of a second of the universe. It could demonstrate the quantum nature of gravity. Rafael Porto leads the German Electron Synchrotron. Uruguay has brilliant minds spread across the globe. Time crystals define a new state of matter. Swirls of light, key to the development of quantum technology. US Senate acquits Donald Trump in his impeachment trial. 7 Republican senators who voted for impeachment asked to resign. Did Trump surrender or devise the most brilliant trap against the old order? Cuba suffered temporal digital blackout on Friday, and there is talk of arrests. World powers measure forces ahead of future battle for 6G networks. Many states have already recognized gold and silver as legal currency. Let's start. Signs of a Quantum Universe is the title of the article by Uruguayan physicist Rafael Porto, with which he has won the Buchalter Prize in Cosmology, awarded by the American Astronomical Society, together with his Canadian colleague Daniel Green from the University of California. They won $10,000 each for their contribution to science. Together, they wrote a paper published in the journal Physical Review Letters in June 2020. In their research, Porto and Green propose a new method to find out whether the giant structures of the universe, such as galaxies, had a quantum origin, that is, from subatomic particles. Rafael Porto studies what could have happened in the first fraction of a second after our universe came into existence. His work had already been awarded by $2 million grant from the European Research Council and the Buchalter Cosmology Prize. Porter's study raises the possibility that those galaxies we can observe today are the result of fluctuation of subatomic particles that arose in the vacuum during the first moments of the universe. The big question, however, is whether we will ever be able to prove that these macroscopic megastructures arose from microscopic particles. The award-winning paper proposes an experimental way to determine the quantum origin of large-scale structures in the cosmos. The research goes back 13.8 billion years before an episode such as the Big Bang, an explosion that produced the matter that now fills the universe. Studies. Rafael Porto went to Liceo Miranda and worked 2 jobs to be able to study at the Faculty of Science. He graduated he graduated in physics at the Faculty of Sciences of the University of the Republic, and today he leads research on gravitational waves at the German Electron Synchrotron design. In quotes, "My mom always told me, you are a thinking idiot, because you talk about the universe as it's useless to me," Porto recalls jokingly. His mother, a social worker who worked at INAU, turned out to be fundamental in his vocation. To study, he had to work 2 jobs while living in a boarding house. Even so, his talent didn't go unnoticed. Porto said that despite all the obstacles, Uruguay has brilliant minds scattered all over the world. Before coming to Germany, he was in Brazil and the United States in search of opportunities he couldn't find in his home country. In quotes, "The financing in South America is not comparable to that in Europe. It's almost impossible to return to Uruguay because there are few options for work and financing," he said. Porto's area of expertise is the analysis of an extremely rapid expansion phase that in the world of cosmology is called inflation. For the jury, the work presents a novel and remarkable way to unambiguously demonstrate the quantum origin of large-scale cosmological structure, which in turn could lead to demonstrating the quantum nature of gravity. Inflation theory. According to current models, during the first moments after the Big Bang, the universe underwent ultra-fast expansion. During this inflation, the cosmos increased hundreds of billions of times its original size. On the other hand, we have quantum mechanics which tell us that it is possible for pairs of particles to arise spontaneously in a vacuum. Usually, these particles are ephemeral and annihilate each other after a very short existence. Quantum particles can arise in the vacuum. During rapid inflation, however, these particles may have separated from each other before they had time to annihilate. Thus, those surviving particles that began to roam space could have been the seeds to give rise to galaxies. In that case, they would go from existing in the quantum realm to existing in the classical or material world, which is what scientists call the macroscopic world. Quantum particles. Their research is based on the fact that if galaxies were created, for example, by real particles from the classical world and not by virtual particles from the quantum world, these traces could sink in the current configuration of galaxies. If astronomers fail to observe that certain patterns of fingerprints among galaxies repeat beyond what chance would allow, then the large-scale structure of the universe couldn't be explained by a classical particle origin. If cosmological probes do not find those signals or perturbations that could have created real particles, then by default the most reasonable explanation would be that the structures were created by quantum particles. Porto cautions that this work doesn't prove that the galaxies formed from quantum particles in a vacuum. That could be science fiction, he warns. What his study proposes is the method to answer the question. It will allow us to know, for example, where those fluctuations were from quantum particles in the vacuum or were from classical particles. Time crystals. In 2012, theoretical physicist Frank Wilczek proposed a controversial concept to describe a new state of matter that defied the laws of physics: time crystals. Wilczek, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics, called him. At first, several of his colleagues said it was simply impossible to create time crystals, but then research, including a recent study at the University of Granada in Spain, has begun to show that it may be possible to create this strange material. Producing such crystals would allow us to measure time and distance between with exquisite precision. As Wilczek wrote in an article in Scientific American, but knowledge in this area is so nascent that scientists are barely able to dream how time crystals could revolutionize areas such as quantum technology, telecommunications, mining, or the very understanding of the universe. Swirls of light. Surprising swirls of light may be the key to the development of quantum technology. We live bombarded by light, and it is a good thing we do, because thanks to it, everything from plant photosynthesis to the device in which you are reading this article is possible. That is why it's essential for scientists to learn more about light and its behavior every day, especially at the subatomic level. What at first glance looks like a beam of light, at the nanometer scale reveals a particular behavior of photons, as the particles of light that are called. Thus, with the help of powerful microscopes, physicists specializing in optics have noticed that light is capable of forming vortices and eddies that trap and transport information. They can even from figures that look like a corkscrew. Political news. Senate acquits Donald Trump in his impeachment trial. The former president was acquitted Saturday in his second impeachment trial in the U.S. Senate. In the upper house, there were not enough votes for the former president to be convicted of alleged incitement to insurrection in quotes for events of January 6 on Capitol Hill. 57 senators supported impeachment, while 43 expressed their rejection. At least 67 votes were required for impeachment to pass. 7 Republican senators who voted in favor of the impeachment on February 13 now face charges of disloyalty and forced to resign or be replaced for their actions. Trump remains a powerful force in Republicans' politics. It's hard to imagine Republicans winning national elections without his supporters in the short term, in quotes, said Alex Conant, a Republican strategist that eyed Senator Marco Rubio during his 2016 presidential primary run. A few days after the riots, a poll found that 70% of Republicans will still approved of the former president's job. A later poll with a similar percentage believed he should be allowed to run for office again. Once the second impeachment is over, the backlash from his supporters may begin. Pelosi is furious. The Speaker of the House of Representatives said she is not interested in censuring the former president after the Senate acquitted him in his second impeachment. He hinted that censoring him would be akin to giving him a little slap on the wrist. Lindsey Graham wants Kamala Harris could be impeached. Senator Lindsey Graham wants that newly sworn-in Vice President Kamala Harris could face impeachment if Republicans hold the majority in the House after the 2022 midterm elections. Trump lawyer Van der Veen's home vandalized with graffiti. This suburban home of one of the lawyers who defended the former president in the Senate impeachment was vandalized, authorities said. Trump's reaction. Moments after the vote took place, the former president issued a statement in which he called the process against him one more phase of the biggest witch hunt in the history of our country. No president has ever gone through anything like this, and it continues because our opponents cannot forget the nearly 75 million people, the highest number for a sitting president, who voted for us just a few months ago, added the former president, in quotes. Did he give up, or has he devised the most brilliant trap against the against the old world order? At this point, there are three main theories about the former president's role in his administration. The first theory is that Trump would have been control dissident, a false opposition created by the system itself, as the Five Stars movement of Salvini's League did in Italy. The second theory is that he would have surrendered and made a deal with globalism, which has pursued him relentlessly since the beginning of his campaign. The third theory is that he would have got the swamp and conceived a trap even more lethal and sophisticated than anyone could imagine, according to the web of Anaco Libertad. Economy. Many states already recognize gold and silver as a legal tender. Many states are starting to get ahead with the curve by returning to gold and silver, which used to back US Treasury currency before the Federal Reserve existed. The trend would suggest that many more, if not all, states will soon join as well. As of 2017, 4 states had laws in place that expressly recognized gold and silver coins as legal tender: Colorado, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Utah. 9 more have since joined them: Arizona, Wyoming, Texas, Kansas, Louisiana, Indiana, Tennessee, West Virginia, and South Carolina now accept gold and silver as cash, and their representatives and residents recognize that Federal Reserve bills and other fiat currencies will eventually inflate and collapse. Excuse me. Bitcoin consumes more electricity than Argentina in a year. A recent analytical study by Cambridge University has concluded that the popular cryptocurrency consumes more energy than Argentina in a year, because the complex calculation performed by the Bitcoin network to verify transactions consume a lot of energy. Cuba suffered a digital blackout. Cuba suffered this Friday a digital blackout of about 2 hours with no known causes so far. Internet service and mobile data were stopped around noon and was only reinstated after 2 o'clock in the afternoon local time. There is a talk of arrests, but we don't know anything more. World powers measure forces before the future battle for 6G networks. The new time of network, which could be launched in approximately 2030, is expected to be up to 100 times faster than 5G. While 5G networks are being deployed around the world, the battle for other technologies is already beginning. Several countries have entered the fray for the next big breakthrough in telecommunications, 6G, which some experts have already called the new Industrial Revolution. Russia builds the world's largest submarine. Russia's special Belgorod submarine is preparing to be launched into the sea for the first time. Preliminary tests of the assemblies and mechanism proved its serviceability and technical reliability. The length of the nuclear submarine is more than 180 meters, making it the longest in the world. Prehistoric music with a conch shell more than 18,000 years old. Although it may not look like it, this is an instrument. 18,000 years ago, this conch shell wasn't a simple fossil, but what today would be equivalent to a musical wind instrument. Philip Walder, head of the laboratory at the Sorbonne University in Paris, explains that the power of the sound produced by this conch shell is incredible. It produces a sound of over 100 decibels. Imagine this kind of music inside a small cave. Imagine the sensations you can get when you play music with this conch in such a place, says Walter. The fossil was discovered 90 years ago in the Marsoles cave in the southwestern France, and since then it has been believed to be a ceremonial cup, but during an inventory control, archaeologists saw some small holes that were unusual for such a conch shell. It was then when they realized that what at first looked like the mortal remains of an animal had actually served as a trumpet thousands of years ago. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends, and thanks for your attention.